We've all been there, sitting, waiting for inspiration to hit like a lightning bolt. But did you know that only 10% of creative professionals rely on sudden bursts of inspiration to get started? That's right. Most people don't wait for a magical aha moment. In fact, waiting around might be killing your creativity. According to the Harvard Business Review, the average person spends over 80% of their creative time feeling stuck. That's a lot of wasted potential. The truth is, creativity doesn't happen because you're inspired. It happens when you take action, even when you're not feeling it. In this video, we're going to bust the myth of waiting for inspiration. I'll show you how to unlock your creativity with simple, proven techniques. From stealing ideas the smart way to using boredom as a creativity tool, we're diving into strategies you've probably never heard of. By the end, you'll see that becoming creative isn't about waiting. It's about showing up, taking action, and doing things differently. Ready to find out how? Let's jump in. Chapter 1. The Myth of the Muse. Stop chasing lightning bolts. We've all heard the phrase, waiting for inspiration. But here's the hard truth. Creativity doesn't arrive in a sudden flash, like a lightning bolt out of nowhere. In fact, studies show that 72% of creatives actually schedule their creative time. They don't wait for it to magically appear. Let's bust the myth of the muse. The idea that inspiration must strike before you can create is outdated. In his book The War of Art, Stephen Pressfield argues that the professional shows up every day regardless of feeling inspired or not. You don't need a spark of genius to get started, you just need to start. Think of creativity like a muscle. It doesn't strengthen unless you exercise it. And it's not just about doing the work, it's about the consistency of doing the work. Research published in the Journal of Applied Psychology revealed that people who engage in daily creative habits feel more creative over time, regardless of how inspired they were at the beginning. So, stop waiting for the perfect moment. You create that moment by sitting down and doing the work. Set a timer for 20 minutes and force yourself to start. You'll be surprised how quickly ideas flow once you do. Chapter 2. Creative Chaos. Why messy minds make masterpieces. Let's talk about chaos. When you think of creativity, you might imagine order, focus, and structure. But creativity is messy. A cluttered mind often leads to the most exciting breakthroughs. In Messy, The Power of Disorder to Transform Our Lives, Tim Harford argues that disorder is essential for creativity. He writes, "We are often at our most innovative when we're forced to improvise, react, and adapt." A study by the University of Minnesota backs this up, showing that people working in messy environments came up with 28% more creative ideas than those in tidy spaces. Why does this happen? The brain thrives on novelty. When thoughts are disorganized, your mind makes unexpected connections between ideas. This is why so many great ideas happen in the shower or when you're half asleep. Your brain is relaxed and not trying to force a solution. So, don't fear a cluttered mind. Instead, embrace it. Let your thoughts wander. Keep a notepad nearby to capture spontaneous ideas. You may find that your next breakthrough idea comes not from intense focus but from a distracted, wandering mind. Chapter 3. The Anti-Comfort Zone. Get bored, get creative. Boredom is your secret weapon. Yes, you read that right. We're so used to filling every idle moment with entertainment, scrolling through social media or binge-watching shows, that we forget boredom can be a trigger for creativity. A study from the University of Central Lancashire found that participants who engaged in a boring task, like copying numbers from a phone book, were far more creative afterward than those who didn't. Why? Boredom forces your brain to find stimulation. Without constant input, the brain starts to generate ideas on its own. Author Cal Newport calls this deep work in his book of the same name. When we step away from distractions and allow our minds to wander, we enter a state of deep thinking where real creativity happens. Here's a practical strategy. Schedule time to do nothing. Take a walk without your phone. Sit on a park bench and just observe. Do a mindless task like washing dishes or folding laundry. Allow boredom to creep in, and your brain will naturally start filling the void with creative thoughts. If you're finding value in these insights, don't forget to subscribe for more tips on unlocking your creativity. Chapter 4. Steal like a genius. The art of creative borrowing. Here's a secret most people don't talk about. Originality is overrated. The best creators don't come up with completely new ideas. Instead, they borrow, adapt, and remix existing ideas. Picasso famously said, "Good artists copy, great artists steal." The key is to steal wisely. In his book Steal Like an Artist, Austin Kleon explains that creativity is about combining influences. Nothing is completely original. Instead of trying to invent from scratch, focus on gathering ideas from different sources and making them your own. Think of yourself as a curator, collecting bits of inspiration from books, movies, art, and even conversations. It's not about plagiarism, it's about transformation. When you take something and make it your own, you create something entirely new. For example, George Lucas famously borrowed elements from old samurai films and mythology when creating Star Wars. The result? One of the most original and iconic stories of all time, built from pieces of others' work. To practice this, create an influence board. Gather images, quotes, or ideas from various sources. Then, ask yourself, how can I combine these in a way no one has seen before? The more diverse your influences, the more original your work will feel. Chapter 5. Constraints equals creativity. Why limitations are your superpower. We often think of limitations as obstacles, but they can be your biggest asset when it comes to creativity. Counterintuitive? Maybe. But science supports it. A study from the University of Amsterdam showed that working within constraints often leads to more innovative solutions. When you don't have unlimited resources or time, you're forced to think outside the box. In his book A Beautiful Constraint, Adam Morgan explains that limitations breed resourcefulness. When you have fewer options, your brain starts to find creative ways to work within those boundaries. Ever wonder why some of the most famous songs are simple 3-chord compositions? Constraints force creativity. A great example is Dr. Seuss. When his editor challenged him to write a book using only 50 words, he created Green Eggs and Ham, one of the most beloved children's books ever. By limiting himself, he unlocked his creativity in new ways. To apply this strategy, set artificial constraints on your next project. Limit your tools, give yourself a tight deadline, or work with a specific theme. The narrower your path, the more creative your solutions will be. Chapter 6. The 10-minute rule. Make creativity a habit, not a mood. Here's one of the most practical strategies for boosting your creativity. The 10-minute rule. Instead of waiting for the perfect moment or mood, commit to working on something creative for just 10 minutes. It's a low-pressure way to build momentum, and research shows that starting is often the hardest part. James Clear, in his best-selling book Atomic Habits, emphasizes that small actions build consistency. The point is to master the habit of showing up, not the habit of being perfect, he writes. Even if you don't feel creative, starting for just 10 minutes often turns into longer stretches of productive work. The trick is getting started. This idea is backed by science. The Zeigarnik effect, a psychological phenomenon, states that starting a task makes your brain eager to complete it. Once you begin, your mind naturally wants to keep going. Try this. Set a timer for 10 minutes and begin working on any creative task, writing, sketching, brainstorming. Often, you'll find that once you start, you're pulled into the flow and end up working much longer. If not, at least you've made a little progress, and that's still a win. If you enjoyed these strategies and want to keep discovering ways to enhance your creativity, make sure to subscribe to the channel. By borrowing ideas, embracing limitations, and showing up for short bursts of effort, you'll discover that creativity isn't something you have to wait for. It's something you can cultivate with simple, effective habits. The more you practice these strategies, the more you'll realize that inspiration isn't magic. It's something you create for yourself.